At the checkout counter, I helped an elderly woman pay for her groceries. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. She pulled me close and whispered urgently, "After your son leaves, don't touch the snow outside your home. Your life depends on it." I thought it was just the confused rambling of a senile old woman. The next morning, when I stepped outside, what I saw nearly stopped my heart. What was waiting in my yard that morning? I'll tell you in just a moment. But first, drop a comment below. What city are you in right now? I want to see how far this warning travels. Now, let's dive into the warning from that day. It started 3 days earlier on a December afternoon when the first real blizzard of the season hit Burlington. I was standing in line at Morrison's Grocery, the little mom and pop place, 2 blocks from my house on Birch Street, watching fat snowflakes paste themselves against the windows. At 70 years old, you stop chasing sales across town. You go to the place where they know your name, where the aisles are familiar. The elderly woman ahead of me was counting coins onto the counter. With trembling fingers, she wore a threadbare coat and faded scarf. On the belt sat the saddest grocery order. I'd seen a small loaf of bread milk, 3 potatoes, and a single onion. "Ma'am, you're short about $150. Ashley, the young cashier, said gently. "How can that be?" The old woman's hand shook. I counted at home twice. Behind me, someone sighed with impatience. The line was growing. I looked at that hunched figure, at her red hands, at those meager groceries. 5 years since Judith passed, and I still heard her voice. "Frederick, we have more than enough. Always help when you can." Ashley rang it up with mine, I said, placing a 20 on the counter. "Oh, sweetheart, you really don't have to." The old woman turned, and her eyes met mine. Those eyes, not cloudy or distant, but clear as winter sky, sharp as broken glass. They looked straight through me in a way that made my breath catch. There was something ancient in that stare, something that knew things. "Thank you, dear," she said quietly. Her grip on my sleeve was surprisingly strong. "Your kindness won't be forgotten." She gathered her groceries, then turned back. The store seemed to go quiet. She leaned in close, and I smelled mothballs and dried lavender. "Listen carefully," she whispered. "When your son leaves tonight, do not touch the snow in your yard. No matter what he tells you, don't shovel until morning." "I'm sorry." "What?" Her fingers dug into my sleeve. "Your life depends on it. Promise me." The intensity in her voice rattled me. I promise." She released me, nodding, and moved toward the exit with surprising speed. The doors whooshed open, and she disappeared into the swirling white like she'd never been there at all. My heart hammered. "Mr. Lawson, you all right?" Ashley asked. "Fine." I shook my head and paid for my groceries, chicken, vegetables, bread, and headed into the storm. The wind slapped my face. I trudged home, boots crunching through powder. The old woman's words echoed. When your son leaves tonight, how did she know Connor was coming? I hadn't told anyone. He'd called that morning, said he needed to stop by after work. First time in 3 months without me asking. I laughed it off as I unlocked my door and stomped snow from my boots. Just an old woman's rambling. Dementia, probably. They get fixated on strange things, see patterns that aren't there. But something in her eyes stayed with me as I watched the storm through my kitchen window. Something that suggested she'd seen things I couldn't imagine, new things I didn't want to know. She'd looked right into my future and seen something that terrified her. Something involving my son and the snow now covering my yard in a pristine, unmarked blanket of white. That evening, headlights swept across my living room wall. Around 6:30, Connor's black sedan pulled into the driveway wheels, crunching through. mounting snow. I opened the door before he could knock. "Connor, come in. You'll freeze." "Can't stay long, Dad." He stepped inside, shaking snow from his jacket, but not taking it off. At 38, my son had grown into a stranger, sharp-featured, always checking his phone, always in a hurry to be somewhere else. "I've got a work trip," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Leaving in an hour. Just wanted to check on you." "That's thoughtful." I tried to keep the surprise out of my voice. "How long? Week, maybe 10 days. He glanced around the house, his gaze lingering on photos of Judith, then moving to the window overlooking the backyard. "Roads are getting bad. They'll plow by morning. Dad, you need to shovel the driveway tonight before it gets worse." "Tonight, Connor, it's still coming down." "Do it tonight." His voice had an edge I didn't like. "You're not getting any younger. If something happens, emergency services need to get in." The concern seemed off, too rehearsed, too insistent. "I'll be fine," I said. "Will you?" He stepped closer. "You'll be here alone, right? No one checking on you. The Andersons are in Florida, aren't they?" "How did you know that?" "I called them last week, making sure someone was looking out for you." A cold finger traced down my spine. "When your son leaves tonight, do not touch the snow in your yard." "I can take care of myself," I said slowly. "Just shovel the driveway, Dad. Please, before bed." He checked his phone, frowned. "I have to go. Flight's early tomorrow." "Flight?" I thought it was a work trip by car. A beat of hesitation. "Driving to Boston tonight, flying out from there." He headed for the door, and I followed. "Connor, is everything all right?" "Fine. Just stressed with work." He paused at the threshold. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Desperation. Fear. "Promise me you'll shovel tonight." The old woman's words rang like a warning bell. "I'll think about it. Dad, drive safe, son." He stared at me jaw tight, then turned and walked to his car. I watched his taillights disappear into the white curtain of falling snow. I locked the door, double-checked the bolt, stood in the dim hallway, listening to the house creak around me. Connor's visit felt wrong. The insistence about the driveway felt wrong. The questions about who'd be checking on me felt very wrong. I walked to the back window and looked at my yard. The snow was pristine, unmarked, beautiful. My shovel leaned against the garage wall, easily accessible. The old woman's warning echoed through my mind, mixing with Connor's strange behavior, his odd questions, that desperate edge in his voice. I left the shovel where it was. That night, I locked the doors and went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I lay in the dark, listening to wind howl and snow pelt the windows, wondering what the hell was going on. The old woman's words kept circling back relentless as the storm. "Your life depends on it." I woke at dawn to silence, the kind of silence that follows a blizzard, when the world holds its breath beneath a blanket of white. The storm had passed sometime in the night, leaving everything still and muffled. My back ached as I shuffled downstairs to the kitchen. I filled the kettle and set it on the stove, then walked to the window while waiting for it to boil. That's when I saw them. Footprints, deep, clear prints cutting through the pristine snow in my backyard. Not mine. I hadn't been outside since yesterday afternoon. Not the mailman's. These came from the side gate, not the front walkway. My hand froze on the curtain. The tracks led from the gate straight toward the house, methodically circling the perimeter. They stopped at every ground floor window, the living room, the kitchen where I now stood, around to the back where my bedroom window faced the yard. I moved to the back window, my heart starting to hammer. The footprints came right up to the glass, close enough that whoever made them could have looked inside, could have seen me sleeping. And there my breath, caught marks in the snow beneath the window frame. Scuff marks like someone had tested the window, tried it, checked if it was locked. The prints were huge, size 13, maybe larger, deep impressions that spoke of a heavy man. Someone substantial. The stride was wide, confident, deliberate. Someone had walked around my house last night while I slept, checking windows, testing locks, looking for a way in. My legs went weak. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. If I'd shoveled the driveway like Connor insisted, like he'd practically begged me to do, these tracks would be gone, covered by my own footprints, destroyed by the scrape of the shovel. I'd never have known someone had been here. The kettle started to shriek, and I jumped like I'd been shot. I turned it off with shaking hands. Who? Why? What did they want? And how in God's name had that old woman known this would happen? I thought about Connor's visit, his insistence about the driveway, the way he'd asked if I'd be alone, if anyone would check on me, the desperate edge in his voice when he said, "Promise me." The tracks didn't lie. Someone had been here. Someone had circled my house like a predator sizing up prey. And Connor had wanted me to erase the evidence before I ever saw it. I forced myself to breathe. The tracks were fresh. No new snow had fallen since the storm ended around midnight. Whoever made them had come after that in the dead of night, in the dark. While I lay sleeping, completely unaware, someone had been outside my window. I looked at the marks beneath the bedroom window again. They tried to get in. If that window had been unlocked, my hand found my phone in my bathrobe pocket. Lieutenant Samuel Crawford had been the officer in this neighborhood for 20 years. He'd helped me after Judith passed checking in on me those first few months. Good man, solid, someone you could trust. I pulled up his number. My thumb hovered over the call button. This wasn't some teenage prank. Those weren't kids' footprints. This was something else. Something that made my gut twist with a fear I hadn't felt in decades. The old woman's face flashed in my memory. Those clear, knowing eyes. She'd seen this. Somehow, impossibly, she'd known. And she'd saved me. I pressed dial. The phone rang once, twice. Crawford. His familiar voice answered, "Samuel, it's Frederick Lawson. I need you to come over." My voice was steadier than I felt. Someone was in my yard last night, and I think they were trying to get inside. Lieutenant. Crawford arrived within 20 minutes, his cruiser pulling up with lights off, but engine running. He stepped out, a tall black man in his early 50s with the kind of presence that made you feel safer, just having them around. "Mr. Lawson," he shook my hand firmly. "Show me." I led him to the back window. He studied the yard, then went outside. I watched as he crouched by the tracks, taking photos. He moved methodically, following the path the intruder had taken from. The gate to the house around the perimeter, pausing at each window. When he came back inside, his expression was grim. Size 13 boots, heavy tread. This man weighs at least 200 pounds. He looked at me seriously. "Mr. Lawson, this wasn't random." He was checking every entry point. Checking for what? To see which ones were vulnerable. Crawford pulled out a notepad. "You lock your windows at night. Always. Ever since my wife passed. Good. That probably saved you." He wrote something down. "Your neighbor across the street, Mrs. Fletcher. She's got a security camera, hasn't she? Rosemary." "Yes. Let's go talk to her." Mrs. Rosemary Fletcher opened her door in a quilted bathrobe, eyes widening. "Frederick, what on earth?" "Sorry to bother you so early," I said. "We need to check your camera from last night." "Of course. Come in." Crawford took the remote, rewinding through footage. "Try around midnight," I said. He fast-forwarded through hours of empty street and falling snow. Then there. Crawford froze the image. 11:44 p.m. A dark sedan rolled slowly down Birch Street. No headlights. It stopped in front of my house. A man got out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket and knit cap. He looked both ways, then walked to my gate. "He knows where he's going," Crawford muttered. The man disappeared into my yard. The minutes ticked by. 8, 10, 12. Then he reappeared, walking back with the same unhurried confidence. He got in and drove away. "Back it up," Crawford said. To when he's getting in, Rosemary rewound. Crawford leaned close. "Can you zoom in?" The image pixelated, but you could make out part of the license plate. VT something 27 something. Vermont plates, Crawford noted. And there on the door. "See that?" I squinted. There was a logo or lettering on the car's side, too blurry to read. Commercial vehicle, maybe. Crawford snapped photos with his phone. "Mrs. Fletcher, email me this footage." "Is Frederick in danger?" Rosemary's voice shook. "We're going to make sure he isn't." Back at my house, Crawford looked at his notes. "Has anyone been to your house recently? Anyone unusual?" Connor's face flashed in my mind. His desperate insistence about the driveway. His questions about who'd be checking on me. "My son stopped by yesterday evening," I said slowly. First time in months. Crawford's pen paused. "And he wanted me to shovel the driveway. Kept insisting on it. Got angry when I said I'd wait." The silence was heavy. "Do you think he was going to rob you?" I looked at those footprints at the marks under my window where someone had tested the lock. "I don't know what to think anymore." Crawford's radio crackled. He stepped away, spoke in low tones, then came back. "I'm running the partial plate and that logo through the system." He met my eyes. "In the meantime, I'm having a patrol car swing by every hour tonight. Keep your doors locked. All of them. Don't open for anyone you don't know. You think he'll come back?" Crawford looked at the footage frozen on the screen. The dark figure, the deliberate movements. "Men like this don't give up after one look." He said quietly, "We need to find out who he is. Fast before he comes back." By noon, Crawford called with news that made my blood run cold. "Marcus Bowl," he said without preamble. "That's who we're dealing with. Ran his prints through the system, and he's got a record that goes back 20 years. I sat down heavily at my kitchen table. What kind of record? Assault, battery, organized violence. Did 2 stretches in state prison, one in New York, one here in Vermont. Got out 18 months ago. Crawford's voice was grim. "Mr. Lawson, this man isn't a thief. He's someone you hire when you want a problem. Handled." The room seemed to tilt. "Handled, you mean?" "I mean, he doesn't work alone. Someone sent him to your house. Someone paid him." My hand tightened on the phone. "For what?" "That's what we're working on." But Frederick, he rarely used my first name. That alone told me how serious this was. Men like Boyle don't case houses for burglary. They're paid to do things most people wouldn't. Things like what? A pause. Things I don't want to say out loud until we have him in custody. My mouth went dry. "Samuel, we found the motel where he's staying. Pine Grove off Route 7. Checked in 3 days ago under a fake name, but the desk clerk ID'd him from the photo. Paid cash. Driving a rental car, that sedan from the footage. 3 days ago. Right before Connor's visit. Right before that old woman warned me about the snow. What does this man want with me? I don't know yet, but we're not waiting to find out." I heard papers rustling. "We've got units positioned near the motel. We're tracking his movements." The rental company confirmed he still got the vehicle. And Frederick, we pulled his phone records. He made a call last night at 11:30 p.m., right before he showed up at your house. To Husada, still tracing that. but someone told him to come. Someone gave him your address. I thought about those footprints again, the way he'd methodically checked. Every window, the marks under my bedroom window where he tested the lock. He was coming back, I said quietly. Wasn't he? Last night was just reconnaissance. That's our assessment. Yes, Crawford's voice hardened. That's why I need you to listen very carefully. Stay inside. Keep every door and window locked. I'm posting Officer Brennan outside your house for the rest of the day and tonight. If Bowl comes anywhere near Birch Street, we'll have him. You think he'll come back tonight? I think he was paid to do a job, and he didn't finish it. So yes, a pause. Frederick, is there anyone who might want to hurt you? Any disputes, money problems, anything? Connor's face swam in my mind again, the desperation in his voice. Promise me you'll shovel tonight. The question's about whether I'd be alone. I don't. I can't think of anyone, I said, but the words felt like lies in my mouth. Well, think hard, because someone hired Marcus Bowl. Someone who knows where you live. Someone who wanted him here last night. After I hung up, I sat at that table for a long time staring at nothing. Marcus Bowl, a man hired to make problems disappear, and someone had pointed him at me. The old woman's warning echoed through my mind, mixing with Connor's strange behavior with those footprints in the snow. The pieces were there, scattered like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. My phone sat on the table. I could call Connor, ask him directly, but ask him what the questions forming in my mind were too terrible to speak aloud. The thought was insane. He was my son, my boy. But I'd seen those tracks. I'd watched that footage. I'd heard Crawford's voice when he said, "Someone you hire when you want a problem handled." A cold dread settled in my chest, heavy as stone. This wasn't random. This wasn't some mistake or a coincidence. Someone wanted something from me, something permanent. And somewhere in the back of my mind, in a place I didn't want to look, I was starting to understand who. They caught him at 4 p.m., just 2 hours before he planned to return to my house. Crawford called with the news. We've got him. Frederick Bowl picked him up at the Panera Motel without incident. I gripped the phone, and he had a duffel bag packed. Gloves locked, picks a knife. This wasn't a social call he was planning. My legs went weak. Did he say anything? He's talking now. Detective Clark is with him. I'll call you back. The wait was excruciating. I paced my kitchen, watching Officer Brennan sit in his cruiser outside. The sun was setting, painting the snow orange and gold. Crawford called back. An hour later, "Frederick, I need you to come down to the station. Detective Clark wants to talk to you." What did Bowl tell you? Better if you hear it in person. The police station was a squat brick building on Main Street. Detective Amanda Clark met me in the lobby. A sharp-eyed woman in her mid-30s with dark hair pulled back tight. "Mr. Lawson, thank you for coming." She led me to a small conference room. "I need to tell you what Marcus Bowl told us." I sat. My hands were shaking. "Boyle has agreed to cooperate. He's being very forthcoming." Clark opened a folder. "He says he was hired approximately 1 week ago to handle the situation." Those were his exact words. "Handle," I repeated numbly. He was paid $5,000 cash up front. His instructions were specific. Make it look like an accident or a burglary gone wrong. The target needed to be alone. The house needed to appear undisturbed from the outside. The room tilted. The driveway. "I," whispered the snow. "Exactly. If you'd shoveled, his footprints would have blended in. Would have looked like you'd been outside working. Maybe had an accident." Clark's eyes were steady. "He came that first night to scout. Check your routine. See? Which window would be easiest? He was planning to come back last night, but I didn't shovel." Yes, his tracks showed up clear, and we started looking. Clark pulled out papers. Mr. Lawson, we've been going through Boyle's phone, text messages, bank transfers. He didn't just get paid in cash. There was an electronic transfer 2 days ago. $5,000. My mouth was dry. From who? Clark looked at me for a long moment. We've also retrieved text messages. Make sure he's alone. Get it done this week. The old man won't suspect anything. The old man? Me? Who sent those? My voice cracked. Clark's expression shifted. Something like pity crossed her face. Mr. Lawson, I think you should sit down for this. I'm already sitting. The person who hired Boyle, she paused. You know him very well. My heart stopped beating. The room seemed to shrink around me. Who? She started to answer, then stopped. Looked at the papers. Back at me. Come to the station tomorrow morning. 900 a.m. will show you everything. The bank records, the text messages, all of it. Her voice was gentle. But Mr. Lawson, I want you to go home tonight. Get some rest. Process this because tomorrow is going to be very difficult. Tell me now. My voice was barely a whisper. Please, just tell me who. Clark's eyes filled with that terrible pity again. Tomorrow, I promise. But for tonight, go home. Officer Brennan will stay posted outside your house. You're safe, safe, safe. The word felt meaningless. I walked out of that station in a daze. Drove home on autopilot. Sat in my dark kitchen, staring at nothing. Somewhere in my mind, I already knew. Had known since Crawford asked if anyone had been to my house recently. Had known since I remembered Connor's desperate insistence about the driveway. But knowing and believing are different things. My son, my boy. The phone sat on the table in front of me. I could call him, demand the truth, but I was afraid of what I'd hear in his voice. I didn't sleep that night, tossed and turned, running through everyone I knew. Who could want me gone? But deep down, I already knew the answer. I just couldn't make myself believe it. The next morning, I sat in a small conference room at the police station. Detective Clark placed a document in front of me. A bank transfer statement, $5,000. Sender Connor Lawson, my son. The room tilted. I stared at those words until they blurred. Mr. Lawson. Clark's voice came from far away. I know this is hard. There must be a mistake. My voice sounded hollow. He wouldn't. There's more. She laid out papers like cards in a terrible hand. Text messages between Connor's phone and Boyle's burner. Make sure the old man's alone. Get it. Done this week. And this one the morning before Boyle showed up tonight. He'll be home alone. I couldn't breathe. Each message was a knife twisting deeper. Phone records show 3 calls between them. The last one at 7:15 p.m., right after Connor left your house. Right after he'd insisted I shovel the driveway. Right after he'd asked if I'd be alone. Why? The word came out broken. Clark pulled out another document. Your son owes $180,000. Gambling debts. Online poker sports betting. He's been in deep for about 2 years. $180,000. How had I not known he's been getting threats messages from loan sharks? Pay up or else. We know where you live. Clark's voice was gentle but relentless. Your house is worth $600,000. As your only child, Connor, stands to inherit everything. It would have solved all his problems. The numbers swam in front of me. My house, my life, reduced to a transaction. When Judith died, Connor was 8 years old, just a boy. I heard myself speaking. He was so scared of being alone, of losing me too. I could see him so clearly, that little boy with tears streaming down his face arms, wrapped tight around my waist. I'll always take care of you, Dad. Always. But somewhere, between that frightened child and the man who'd stood in my kitchen, something had broken. I gave him everything, I whispered. After Judith passed, he was all I had left. I worked 2 jobs to put him through college, helped with his apartment, his car, every time he needed money. My voice cracked. I would have given him the house if he'd asked. All he had to do was ask. Clark said nothing. What could she say? He didn't just want the house, I said slowly. He wanted me gone. Not in a nursing home. Not living somewhere else. Gone. I'm sorry. Where is he? We have units heading to his apartment now. We'll have him in custody within the hour. She paused. Do you want to be here when we bring him in? You don't have to. I thought about that. About never seeing Connor's face again. About letting him become just another stranger. But I needed to. Understand. Needed to see his eyes when he knew I'd survived. I want to see him. My voice was steadier than I felt. When you bring him in, I need to see his face. Clark nodded slowly. We'll call you. I stood to leave my legs unsteady. At the door, I turned back. That old woman at the grocery store, she knew. Somehow she knew what he was planning. Sometimes people see things the rest of us miss, Clark said. Or sometimes I thought they see exactly what's there. And I'd been too blind to notice my own son was capable of this. The boy who'd promised to always take care of me had hired someone to make sure I'd never need taken care of again. They arrested Connor that evening at Burlington International Airport. He was trying to board a flight to Mexico. Crawford called me at 6 p.m. We have him, Frederick. He's being brought in now. If you want to be here, I'm on my way. I arrived. At the station 20 minutes later, Clark met me in the hallway, her expression carefully neutral. He's in interrogation room, too. There's an observation room next door. One-way glass. He won't know you're there, unless you want him to. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She led me to a small, dark room. Through the glass, I could see Connor sitting at a metal table, handscuffed in front of him. He looked smaller, somehow younger. His hair was messy, his eyes red. He looked like my son. Clark entered the interrogation room with another officer. Connor's head snapped up. This is insane, he said immediately. I don't know what you think I did, but Connor Lawson, you're being charged with conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation of murder. Clark's voice was flat professional. We have bank records showing a transfer of $5,000 from your account to Marcus Bowl. We have text messages between your phone and his. We have phone records. That's I didn't. Connor's face went pale. This is crazy. I would never. Clark laid out the evidence, the transfer, the messages, the calls. I watched my son's face crumble. Watched him realize there was no way out. I didn't have a choice. The words burst out of him. They were going to hurt me. These people, you don't understand what they're capable of. So you hired someone to hurt your father instead. The house is just sitting there. Connor's voice rose desperate. He's old. He doesn't need all that money. I'm his son. I'm supposed to inherit it anyway. I just needed it now. And he wouldn't have understood. My hands clenched into fists. Wouldn't have understood. Like I was the problem. Like I was the unreasonable one. So you paid Marcus Bowl to make it look like an accident. Clark said quietly. Connor's head dropped. I told him, I said it had to look natural. A fall, a break in something. I didn't want his voice cracked. I didn't want him to suffer. How generous. Connor. Clark leaned forward. Your father's here. He's watching. Connor's head jerked up. His eyes swept the room, landing on the mirror on me. Dad? His voice was small, broken. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. These people were going to. I couldn't listen anymore. Couldn't watch him make excuses. Couldn't hear him reduce my life to a problem that needed solving. I turned toward the door. Mr. Lawson Crawford was there. "Do you want to speak with him?" I looked back through the glass one last time at the son I'd raised, the boy I'd loved, the man who'd hired someone to end me. "No," I said quietly. "I don't have a son." I walked out of that police station into the cold December evening. The snow had finally stopped. The sky was clear, stars beginning to appear. The air was crisp and clean, sharp in my lungs. For the first time in days, I could breathe. Behind me, I heard Connor shouting my name, begging, pleading. I didn't look back. Spring came early that year, melting away the last traces of winter. By March, the snow was gone, replaced by green shoots pushing through thawed earth. The trial was quick. Connor pleaded guilty. 25 years with possibility of parole after 15. Marcus Bowl got 30. No parole. I didn't attend the sentencing. Clark called with the verdict. I thanked her and hung up. I sold the house in April. Couldn't stay there anymore. Bought a small condo near downtown Burlington overlooking Lake Champlain. 1 bedroom, perfect for starting over. The Andersons from my old street checked on me weekly. Rosemary Fletcher called every Sunday. But it was a flyer at Morrison's Grocery that changed things. A community group at the senior center. I showed up on a Tuesday. Met Warren, Harvey, Ernest, and Lloyd. We started playing chess on Thursdays. Went to a Bruins game. Just existed. Together. No questions, no pity, just friendship. I took a painting class taught by Carol. Discovered I was terrible at landscapes, but decent with portraits. Barbara at the library offered me volunteer work 3 mornings a week. Peaceful, methodical. One morning in May, I found myself back at Morrison's. Ashley was still behind the register. "Mr. Lawson, haven't seen you in a while." I moved downtown. I paused. "Ashley, that elderly woman last December, the one I paid for. Have you seen her since?" Her smile faded. "That's the strangest thing. I've worked here 6 years. Never saw her before that day. Never saw her after. Never. Never. It was like she appeared just for that moment, then gone." I stood there thinking about those clear eyes. Your life depends on it. Thank you, Ashley. That evening, I sat on my balcony, watching the sun set over the lake. A pair of geese flew overhead, honking their way north. I thought about that old woman. She'd seen something that day, some terrible future, and changed it. Saved my life with 6 words about snow. I'd never know who she was. Maybe a confused woman making a lucky guess. Maybe something else. It didn't matter. What mattered was I was here breathing, watching the sunset, making friends, building a life that was mine. Family wasn't just who you were born to. It was who chose to stay, who showed up with casseroles, who played chess on Thursdays, who taught you to paint. The Andersons, Rosemary, Warren Harvey, Ernest Lloyd, Carol, Barbara. These were my family now. I raised my coffee cup to the empty air. "Whoever you were," I whispered, "thank you. You saved more than my life. You gave me a chance to live it." The breeze carried my words away over the water, and somewhere, I like to think, an old woman with knowing eyes smiled. It's never too late to begin again, to find your people, to choose kindness over blood. Life offers second chances in strange ways, sometimes through a warning about snow. I was 70 years old, and I was just beginning to understand what it meant to truly live. Looking back, I see the signs I missed. The distance, the desperation. Don't be like me. Don't let love blind you to danger, even from family. God sent help when I needed it most. That mysterious woman at Morrison's. I believe she was his messenger. God sees what we cannot, knows what we refuse to believe. Sometimes God works through strangers to save us from our own blood. The lesson? Trust is earned, not owed. Family isn't DNA. It's presence, loyalty, and love in action. I spent 70 years believing blood meant everything, only to discover my real family was waiting in a chess game, a painting class, a volunteer shift. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings, lessons, reminders that evil can wear a familiar face. That salvation comes unexpectedly, and it's never too late to start over. This is one of many grandpa stories I'll share. Stories of survival, redemption, and second chances. If an old man like me can rebuild at 70, anyone can. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love knowing how far these grandpa stories travel. Share it with someone who needs this message about trust, family, and new beginnings. Your support means everything. Until next time, subscribe to Astral Vengeance. Thank you.